Okay, welcome everyone. Today is January 9th, and this is another of our bi-weekly SIG Apps calls. My name is Mache, and I'll be your host today. And let me put my name right over here. Uh, I have one quick announcement. The 127 schedule is out. If you have not seen it, it is linked in the agenda, which I also linked in the chat. The key dates for you to remember is February 10th is when the enhancements freeze um, is due. The code and test freeze are March 15th and 22nd accordingly. So please make sure to get your enhancements sooner than later and get them reviewed ahead of time. Um, I don't think there are any other additional announcements. Um, so we can move over to the main topic. Abdullah, you added the allow creating index jobs with completion meals. You want to walk us through it?
Yeah, can you open the issue, please? Yeah. So, um, as you all know, we introduced index job a few releases ago. One thing we did for index job was we validated that completions should be set because we wanted to use it as a way to define the range of indices that will be created for the job. I'm suggesting here that we relax this validation with the semantics of having parallelism being used as the defining limit of the range for the index job. Um, and the idea here is that we want to maintain the current behavior of completions equal nil. And let me explain how it works right now. So in the normal job, that the one that is like the legacy one where uh, uh, the not the indexed mode, if you set completions equal nil, then the controller will basically create parallel number of jobs, whatever parallelism is, and it will declare the job as successful if any pod finishes successfully. And I'm suggesting we do the exact same thing for index job, again, with the minor change of basically the way that we define the range is using parallelism instead of completions, because basically completion is not defined. Um, why we want that? So as you might know, for many batch workloads, we have this pattern where you have like a manager and a bunch of workers. Those workers are basically waiting for work to be assigned to them by the manager. Using and in many cases, these workers, like the manager needs to communicate with these workers. So you need to set up stable DNS endpoints for each of these workers. So if we are to use index job, we will get these stable DNS names, but you would basically want to know in advance the number of workers that you will have, because completion is immutable. So that because this is the only way you can create an index job. Now, if we relax this assumption, then we can treat workers as basically a bunch of pods that can be auto-scaled with the semantics that we're going to get from job, which is like failures, retries, and all these goodies that we have in the job. So in a sense, we can use it in a similar way to how we use stateful set, but with the advantage of having the new like job specific features like retriable and non-retriable failures, how it fails, how it try, etc. Any questions?
The only question that I had, I've noticed that Tim was asking about the completions, how this will work, and so forth. But I guess what you just explained with regards to parallelism is basically answering all the questions that I had. There was something that I it just uh give me a moment if I'll recall what I was thinking of. I'll let anyone else ask some questions if they have.
So I can quickly restate what the proposal is. So right now, index job is allowed to be created when completions are set. Proposal is to allow index job to be created when completions are equal to nil. Rely on the parallelism parameter to define the range. Parallelism is a mutable field, and so we can use it in a similar way of how we use stateful sets. So you can auto scale it. With the advantage of using index job with completion equivalent versus stateful set is that with job you get the failure retriable and retriable failures semantics which don't exist in stateful sets.
Can you remind me, failed pods in the job without completions being set, they don't count towards the successful. It has to be a successful completion of any pod for
Correct.
the job to be marked as a
Yeah,
completed one, right? Okay.
exactly. There needs to be at least one pod successful to declare the job as successful. Otherwise, you're going to rely on the backoff limit to basically declare when the job is filled.
How changing the parallelism, since this is the only field that you can always modify within the job, affect the work? We will always just update the current running pods to match 0 to parallelism pods. So in that case, if you're scaling up, we'll just be adding additional ones. And on a sort of scale down of the parallelism, we'll be just killing the last one.
Correct. Yeah. So right now, that's the other change that we have to make to enable this. Right now, when parallelism is reduced, the way that it currently works is that we remove pods based on some heuristic, like the recently created one or something like that. So for this exact mode, we would basically change that heuristic to behave like stateful set, just remove the higher index ones.
Yeah, I don't see any objections. I remember that Tim, when I was scrolling through the issue, he raised some concerns with regards to introducing another completion mode, which is definitely not something that I would want to see. And your and Aldo answers with regards, it's totally valid to relax the validation. That's one of the reasons why we are keeping the validation stricter initially, to be able to relax it. The opposite is a little bit more harder because you can get into the state where you will be running in a cluster with invalid data, where in this particular case, that's not a problem. And on top of that, users, they have to explicitly set the completions to nil to be able to build on top of that. I'm assuming that you will be going through the regular alpha beta state for that, or how you're thinking of rolling this out. I think Aldo was asking with regards to being able to modify, roll out the API changes first and only the controller in the next release.
It's the opposite. Like we need to make changes first to take parallelism into account when doing the and then relax the validation.
Okay.
Because right now we always look at completions and we assume that completions are never nil when it is index mode, when it's in index mode. So we need to change that first, roll it. That basically a no-op, and then relax the validation in the next release.
So basically would be targeting 127 to modify the controller, and in 128 at soonest you'll be modifying the API validation. Is that correct?
That's my initial, like, Aldo's initial suggestion. I need to look closer at this. Do you suggest that we write a KIP for this one?
I think in the original cap for index jobs, we explicitly said that we will not allow setting completions to nil. So we would either have to modify the original cap and roll the changes this way, or create a new one covering just this particular area.
I will create a new one then, but I don't expect that we will have a feature flag. There is no feature flag associated with it because the first change. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because the first change is a refactor, basically. The whole thing is hinging on the validation, right? Like, really, just relaxing that check. And so
The first change would be the controller.
right, but like, we don't really need a feature flag for that change.
Right.
It's a minor refactor.
Right. And that should not destabilize the current controller behavior. I wonder about the API change though.
So for the API change, we're changing the validation. I don't know what the feature flag would enable us because it's not introducing a new field.
True.
And so it would just delay the whole thing. I don't know if we gain anything in terms of stability or reliability. We can discuss that on the KIP.
Yeah, I don't see any objections. I'm happy to approve. Yeah, go ahead, Aldo.
So one more thing to think about is that for the API validation, we also need changes in the first release, because basically we need to allow updates to have the field, but disallow it during create. And then in the next release, we allow it during create. That's
about which field you're talking about.
So when we are doing validations for completions, we currently deny completions equal nil. So what we have to do is, in the first release, we have to allow this during updates. If the field is already nil, it can continue to be nil. And then the next release, we can say the field can be nil from the creation point. This is necessary because
yeah, go ahead.
This is necessary for upgrades, right? Because you could have n+1 API server that accepts the change, and then it goes back to an n API server, and then it doesn't know what to do, or it tries to deny the object.
I mean, it depends on how we implement the update validation on that field. If the update is validation is that the field shouldn't change, then nothing. We don't need to change anything. Right?
I would probably the original question should sound: do we want to allow modifying existing index jobs to use that feature, or rather we will force everyone to create a brand new such that they will be allowed? And personally, I'm inclined to say the latter, because you can't change the completions normally. The only field that you can modify in a job is parallelism. And the fact that we will be relaxing the validation should not break the rule of, oh, I want to update any particular field. If you want to use that feature, you should create a brand new index job.
Yeah, I mean, that will always be the case. Completions is immutable, right? And this will not change. And so if the validation on update that the field didn't change, not that it's nil, then we don't really need to do anything. Just relax the validation in the next release. I can check, make sure that this is indeed the way that we're validating completions. If that's the way, then yeah, I mean.
I think
so
there's an explicit check which only verifies that you are modifying the parallelism, and anything else should be disallowed. But I might be wrong, so that's probably something that we would have to double check.
So I can fill up one detail here that yes, we do check immutability, but in addition to immutability, we check during update, we check the same things we check for create. So that needs to be relaxed.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, I'll have to double check. I don't remember the code off the top of my head, so yeah, it's something that we can figure out during the either cap or specifically in the implementation phase. That I'm perfectly fine about that bit.
All right, thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Abdullah?
No, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Abdullah and Aldo. Hiba, you want to raise the topic of PR's review priority?
Yeah, so I just wanted to align with the SIG apps about the priority for any PRs that needs to be reviewed during this cycle, the release cycle. So I can help as much as I can with reviewing PRs. So please let me know if there is any priority I need to take care into consideration, or just picking, like whatever is. Like PRs is opening for the current release.
Right. So in general, I would look at what kind of features we will be accepting for 127. I'm currently going through the list of what the stuff that we have, and if I remember correctly, we certainly have. There will be a PR from Abdullah with regards to changing the index jobs. It will be explicitly impacting the job controller. There will be the PDB unhealthy policy that Philip was working, and that will be we will be promoting that over to beta. From what I remember, cron job is due. Cron job time zone is due for GA in 127. I don't recall if there's anything else yet. Although there's a couple of the PRs coming from folks from instrumentation, which are adding the context over to logging. And both Philip and I are looking at those PRs. If you can, if you want to help us, you can be part. I can definitely. I pinged you in the Slack thread that we have in the SIG Apps channel, where Patrick Oley was asking for what it should look like. So that will be the primary, and then any other, and the next priority would be basically any other PR fixing the controllers.
Sounds good. Okay.
That's roughly the priorities that we're trying to follow for 127.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. I will continue this conversation with you and the SIG app, and I will see like which one I will pick, and I will let you know. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much. Does anyone else have any other topics for the group?
Hello.
Hey.
Hey. So I'm new in this meeting. I've opened a mail request, so just an issue. So I present it now. I don't know how it works. I can share my screen and present it now, or I don't know.
Sure. Let me make you a co-host, and you should be able to share your screen. You should be now able to share your screen.
So I can share. Okay. Sharing your screen. Okay. It's okay.
Yep, we can see your issue 114674.
Okay, so the basic idea. Oh. Wait. Okay, so the basic idea of this feature is sometimes you just want to generate some environment variables on the fly. So for example, a cron job that runs every day, but needs to claim a GWT that is only valid 10 minutes or things like that. And today, we don't have a reliable way to init this environment variable. So basically, the thing we do is override the entry point of the script by sourcing an environment file that is generated before with the init container. And this is a problem when you are dealing with not your entry point or on your Docker file. If it's a third-party app, the entry point, you don't really know what it is, and it can change sometimes. So the second idea to deal with this is inside the init container, you allow, you install a kubectl, and you can edit this pod to add some environment variables to the container on the fly, but it's not the best way. And sometimes, for example, HashiCorp Vault. Where is my? So HashiCorp Vault, for example, just say to you, add this file, and at the end, you will add some environment variable, and you have a non file. At the end, you have a non file that you need to source before adding your entry point script. So it's not really good. And the basic idea of my my issue is add on var source or on from source to allow user to just say to Kubernetes before running this Docker container, check this file, parse it, and add all of this environment variable to the Docker before running it. So I don't know if you have questions.
So first of all, because you're trying to modify the pod level resources, the SIG apps will not be of much help for you, but it will be more a question for SIG node if they are interested in having the ability to inject any kind of environment variables, or rather be able to modify the environment as a whole without going into specific, whether there'll be injection of specific environment variables or some additional modification to the image you're running. So I'll probably start with the SIG node,
Yeah,
whether
that
they
code's in
are.
Kubelet.
Yeah, go ahead, Ken.
So that code's in Kubelet.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying SIG node is the best place to ask about something like that. I'm not sure if they are considering anything around this problem, this area. Maybe they already have something which might be addressing your problem, or they will be able to guide you a little bit better. But I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay, so thank you. So it's SIG node.
Yes,
Yeah,
Signode, they own the kubelet process.
Yeah, like what you're asking for is for somebody, when Kubelet creates a pod, it goes down, pulls out, creates the mirror pod. When it starts like actually bringing up containers, it would, yeah, I don't know how this would actually work either. Because like what you're asking for is it for it to run until the init container is complete, then look at the file system that's shared between them. And after init container completion, then populate the environment variables for the main container in the pod. And I'm assuming this would only work between init containers and pods, right? Like you couldn't, because there's no defined launch order for containers. I mean, there is an actual launch order, it's just not defined, that are not init containers and pods. It would only be like, I'm going to write a file with an init container and then pull that into a pod. So it's not a trivial thing to implement. And yeah, but you could, it doesn't hurt to ask them.
Okay, thank you.
They're definitely the code owners for this request.
Yes, definitely. Okay, does anyone else have any other topics that they want to discuss with the group? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much all, and see you next time. Bye all.
Thanks, see you.
Thank you.